they are almost identical. Almost identical. Okay, there are slight differences, but they are overall they are almost in terms of cyclicality. They are almost identical, and even the level of consumption is almost identical. And you can see how consumption in the interest-based system, first of all, highly cyclical, unstable system, plus it is lower. People are less happy in an interest-based system than in a markup system and interest-free system. Okay? This is a very surprising or very informative result. That how a markup system, first of all, is almost identical to an interest-free system, to the ideal, and how it is different from the interest-based system. Okay? This is net income. This is aggregate net income. When we say net income, it is income minus the installment due. Okay? Minus the installment due. Because agents are accumulating debt, net income is declining, okay, for the markup and the interest-free system. But you can see how the interest-based system, net income is highly cyclical, simply because the installment due are highly cyclical because of the interest mechanism. Sorry. Okay. Now let's see how wealth is distributed in the three systems. This is called Lorenz curve. If you have ever met Mr. Lorenz curve, you would know that in this curve we have distribution curve. On the x-axis, we have the percentage of agents holding the percentage of wealth on the y-axis. Okay? So, this is the 45-degree line. Okay? In this 45-degree line, 50% of agents hold 50% of wealth. 10% of agents hold the lowest 10%, hold 10% of wealth, and so on. This is the 45 line. This is a reference line. Now, you can see how markup and interest and interest-free systems are quite close to each other. The light color is the interest-free, the standard model, while the green color is the markup. They are very close to each other, as you can see. Okay, but for the interest-based system, it's extremely skewed. And if I just move on, this will show the picture. Let's move to the table. This gives us the numbers. So you can see that 10% of the agents in the standard model, they hold 0.4% of total wealth. In the markup model, they hold 0.2% of total wealth. But the interest-based system, almost zero. It is not even measurable. Okay? If we move, for example, to 30%, the lowest 30%, the less 30% fortunate agents, they hold 6.3% in the standard interest-free system. They hold 4.9%, almost 5% in the markup model, but they hold 0.1% of wealth. Now, let's move, say, to 70%. The lowest 70% of agents, they hold 40%, 42% of wealth in the standard model, interest-free lending model, almost 40% in the markup model. You can see how they are very close to each other. But how much in the interest-based system? 4%. 70% of agents hold only 4% of total wealth. Now, if you move to 80% of agents hold 57% of wealth in the standard model, 54% in the markup model, but only 13%. 90%, the lowest 90% of agents hold 75% of wealth in the standard model, 72% the markup model, but only 38% in the interest-based system. If you deduct it, if you subtract, this means that the wealthiest 10% of agents, they hold 62% of wealth. The top 10%, they hold 62% of wealth in the interest-based model, but they hold 28% in the markup model and 25% in the standard interest-free model. So, in other words, wealth is highly concentrated in the interest-based system, very highly concentrated, but mildly concentrated in the standard model and the markup model. We are not saying that in an Islamic system, wealth is equally distributed. No, this is wrong. As you have seen, even the interest-free system, okay, it is skewed. Even the interest-free, from the table you can see it. From the table you can look at it. Even the standard interest-free system, where people lend for no return whatsoever, wealth is concentrated, but it is much less concentrated than in the interest-based system. Okay, so wealth, there will be asymmetric distribution of wealth in all cases. Okay, but in the case of interest-based system, it is extremely concentrated. Now let's see efficiency of the model. Okay, what does efficiency mean? Now this table tells us some numbers. Accumulated loans, we run the model, by the way, for 1,500 periods. At the end of the simulation, we accumulate all these numbers. We see how much loans has been extended throughout the simulation period. In case of a standard model, basically $10,000. If you assume the currency is dollars, so we assume the $10,500. In case of markup, $11,000. In case of interest-based, $11,000. So almost very close in terms of accumulated loans. How many loans have been extended? But what about repayment? In case of standard model, you get more or less $10,000 repayment. The reason that repayment is less than the loans is that there are always people who are still have not yet paid all the amount due, because the loan has been extended for, each loan is extended for a certain amount of period, say 65 or 60 periods. So if you cut the simulation, you will find that the total repayment is less than total loans. This is natural. Okay, we are not restricting that all loans are repaid before the end of simulation. We simply cut the simulation at a certain period. So you will get accumulated repayments less than the accumulated loans in case of the standard model. In case of markup, accumulated repayments is 13,000. Okay, more than the accumulated, so to speak, loans, 11,000. The reason is the markup. Okay, the markup is the difference. This is because borrowers or debtors, in case of markup financing, they are paying more. They are paying the markup, and therefore total repayments are greater. But greater by how much? Say 30%. Now look at how much repayment in the interest-based system. 23,000. Twice as much, more than twice as much as total loan. Now, per dollar, okay, repayment per dollar, 0.9 for in case, 0.9 in case of the standard for each dollar, 1.2 in case of markup, but 2 in case of standard. In other words, borrowers are repaying on aggregate and on average, which, I mean, the average is basically aggregate divided by the number of agents, twice as much as they borrow. Okay? Now, to see what does that mean in terms of efficiency, let's calculate the turnover. The turnover you divide for each you accumulated surpluses. You divide accumulated loans by accumulated surpluses. You divide accumulated loans by accumulated surpluses, because loans are extended from surpluses, from available surpluses. So we divide accumulated loans from accumulated surpluses and see each dollar of surpluses, how many times it was lent. That's a turnover. How many times each dollar of surpluses has been lent to consumers. In case of standard model, turnover is 4.3. In other words, each dollar of surpluses has been lent 4 times to consumers. Now, if each time the loan is extended, it is used for consumption, this shows that you have a very high consumption. That's the case. So it's a very high turnover rate, which means that surpluses are very efficient because they are highly utilized. The turnover rate is very high. Now, if you go to the markup model, each dollar has been lent 4.29 times. Again, almost the same as the standard, 4.3, basically 4.3. Now go to the interest-based system and see how many times each dollar of surpluses has been lent, 1.1. Now you tell me which system is more efficient, an interest-based system or a markup system. Now if we measure efficiency in terms of how many times each dollar has been lent, then of course markup system is much more, 4 times actually, almost 4 times more efficient than the interest-based system. Okay, so on pure efficiency arguments, the Islamic system is better than the interest-based system. Now let's calculate cost of finance. Cost of finance, we simply take total markup payments, only the markup. We aggregate the markup payment throughout the period, divided by the aggregate or accumulated loans, and see how much markup paid per dollar of loan. In the markup system, and the same thing for interest, we accumulate or aggregate accumulated interest payments and divide that amount by accumulated loans and see how much dollar has been paid above and over each dollar of loans. This is cost of financing. In the standard system, by definition, it is zero. It is zero. Consumers are paying zero amount above and over the loan. In the markup system, you get 0.47%. Just to keep you aware, the contractual markup, i.e. when the consumer gets the markup financing, contractually it is set to 0.5% per period. Okay, this means if you multiply it by 12, if we assume each period is 1 month, this means you get 6% per year, which is a reasonable cost for markup. The same thing for interest. Contractually, each loan, the interest rate on the loan contractually is 6%. Okay, so the cost, contractual cost for markup and interest is identical. It is 6% per annum, 6% per year. That's the contractual cost. When the agent gets the loan, he is contractually obligated to pay 6% above and over the amount extended. In both systems, in both regimes, the markup regime and the interest regime. But then, because people are in the interest-based system, they are refinancing, look how much aggregate or accumulated cost of financing they have to pay. For each dollar, actual cost of financing is 2.9%.